Hello, welcome to the Daft Souls podcast. Today I'm joined by Mr. Quentin Smith.
Hello.
Brendan Caldwell.
Hello.
And bonus, we usually have 3 people, we've got 4 today for reasons that you might be able to guess. We also have Mr. Paul Dean.
Hello.
And yes, we've just been finishing doing a bunch of shut up and sit down stuff for the day, doing the Gold Club assembly, bleeding, ink, etc. But now we're going to take a break and talk about some video games. So what have you been playing this week, Quince?
I have finally tried Hearthstone. There's a game that's fine.
Yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts on Hearthstone, because I know that within the games press, Hearthstone gets a lot of love, and I kind of think there's a bit of a Blizzard effect.
It is. Well, credit where it's due, Hearthstone is so gorgeous. It's just covered in that special Blizzard sauce where the UX is just astonishing. You know, like from unpacking a new pack of cards or just playing the game. Cards explode and pop, and when you kill your opponent, your opponent explodes in a crater, which is ridiculous. But the other card game I've been playing recently is actually Card Hunter, which, Paul, you reviewed for Eurogamer?
I did, for Eurogamer. A while ago now, back, I don't know, springish, I think it came out, and I was in the beta for absolutely ages, and I played it quite a bit.
So, I'm interested in comparing the two, because while they're not quite similar, they're both free-to-play card games,
Yes.
and I feel like Card Hunter is as exciting as Hearthstone is boring, and also Hearthstone is as gorgeous as Card Hunter is kind of lo-fi.
Card Hunter's lo-fi deliberately to give the impression that you are with friends sat around a table playing a kind of a D&D-ish board game.
Yeah, and that's what I found charming, how you do an adventure module and it opens the book, and then there's weird stuff like, I think I laughed out loud when the pizza girl arrives and it set up the romance between your GM and the
Yes.
I thought that was sweet, and
It's fine, actually. It's not bad at all.
Yeah, I cringed when it happened, but I'm like, it's all right. It's not as bad as I thought it was. I was like,
No.
oh God.
It's done okay. It's done
all
in
right.
an awkward way rather than in a kind of a narrow-minded way, which is good.
But generally, the deck building kind of stuff in Card Hunter is really interesting, whereby you equip items on your heroes and the items give them cards. And Matt, you were pointing out how it's interesting in PvP, because if a really bad card like Clumsy gets played, you know it's because they've got some super axe, which...
It's the fact that you can't tweak your deck to a tremendous motorcycle action there. Don't know if that'll pick up. I always find it interesting. Sometimes you sort of think, oh God, but then it doesn't actually pick up as much as you think. Anyway, you have got these weird card combinations. The fact you can't custom build a specific hand. Like, you know, if you want the best cards, then they come on equipment that also have bad cards. So if you see one of those bad cards pop up because they have to be played as soon as they're drawn into the hand, you kind of go, okay, I'm staying away from that guy then, because you know, especially sometimes it's like boom, boom, which means they've just played 2 bad cards. You're like, what the fuck are they got? Like, and it's just like, you just see this little dwarf very, very eager to try and get as close to you as possible, and it's like, no. You're not standing next to me because you're probably going to kill me.
Right, so then on the other side of things, we've got Hearthstone, and it's, let's be frank, it's Magic the Gathering, sort of, with a lot of tweaks. It's got the summoning minions, it's got spells, it's got kind of enchantments, and then the tweak is that rather than having to play lands, which give you mana is a resource that ticks up every turn. So the big concern during deck construction is having cards you can play on round 1 and then cards you can play in end game to try and seal the deal. But it's fun when you're winning and not fun when you're losing, which is not an enormous achievement. You know, it's not.
The frustration I found with it was that the pre-built decks that you get aren't very good.
No.
And you basically, you need to be making your own decks. And then the problem with that is that actually making your own decks only really works if you know the game. And you only really know the game if you've played a lot of it or watched a lot of it.
It's not very intuitive, I feel.
It's not. And basically every time I've made a public comment, because I get really frustrated by it, because it's one of those things where I kind of feel like there are certain companies, I think Blizzard's one of those companies, that when that company does something, the entire of the games media suddenly wake up and go, oh, this genre's amazing. That happens with StarCraft. Oh, real-time strategy game. And it's like, it feels like there are only a few people in the world who do that, where they get that immediate kind of love from the press, because they do make things so shiny and aesthetically pleasing.
You know, I got a touch of that from Titanfall, whereby Titanfall came out and all the games press went, oh, I'm playing a first-person shooter on the internet. It's great. And you sort of go, I know you don't play online FPSs. And sure enough, that portion of the games press actually kind of fell. Titanfall seems to have lost its hype very quickly.
Well,
I think, does it have legs? It's good. This is it. It's good. It's just, I've
heard it's very good,
that people seem to like it more than they
do other. Well, it's got robots in it.
I mean, one of the editorials, I won't say who wrote it, but I did read an editorial that was by someone who basically said, I thought it was rubbish and it's not. And that didn't just feel like a strong enough editorial position to have about a game.
About a game that people have spent years on. And
yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird one, but
admittedly though, that was the exact editorial line I took when I made my videos about Dragon's Dogma. It was me just going, I thought this game was going to be shit, but actually it's kind of shit, but really good as well.
We're in trouble now.
But with Titanfall, it's bollocks because that's basically like the fact that everybody seemed to be hating on Titanfall, and it's like, guys, it's clearly going to be like quite good. It's going to be measurably good. It's being made by a team of people who are measurably good and they've got loads of money. It's like Titanfall was never going to be one of those games that was going to come out and be like, oh god, this is very bad. It was always going to be like fairly accomplished at what it did.
And also I think that the originality of the Titans itself is a nice new dynamic. The fact that you get into them and then you eject out of them and you jump on someone else's, and that's quite neat.
It is neat.
But I kind of wonder with the longevity of these things, whether it's just where you are in your life, you know? It's like I used to play so much of the first Call of Duty Modern Warfare, but that's because I don't know.
That's it. 4 years ago, I would have snapped up Titanfall and just played it for years and years and years. But like, no, I saw my housemate playing it, and I looked at it and went, "That is too fast."
Yeah,
that is too fast. Look at those guys; they're running like.
That's it. I was like, I could not get my head around it. I was like, oh, what? So I've got to be aiming and like jumping around sideways and worrying about basically doing parkour whilst aiming. And I was like, oh no, it's just, my head's not built for this.
I played Rezo, like I played 10 minutes of Rezo and said that, and had this exact same reaction. Like, even a year ago, I would have been fine with trying to deal with it, but my eyes just went no.
See, this is why I was able to have so much fun with Tribes Ascend last summer, which I just played every night, because you're soaring through the air, like you are catapulting yourself and you're firing discs at people, and it seems like it would be really high, like really tense and really fast, but actually there's something really beautiful and slow about Tribes, where even though you are hurtling through the air in a parabola at like 180 miles an hour, you're kind of stuck in that arc, and it's kind of thinking about, well, what am I going to do when I land? And it's shooting. It's not keeping your cursor on someone. It's leading the target, and it's firing one disc about 50 yards in front of him, so he will hit it at the correct point.
Archery.
Like it is. It's funny, and it's this perfect blend of like really tense sort of like base battles where you do need to pull the trigger as soon as someone rounds a corner, and also just slow, thoughtful. Okay, I'm flying now, and it's interesting. Whereas Titanfall doesn't need this.
It just seems to be the trajectory that first-person shooter has taken, and I think it's not for me, because I
but you do play a lot of Dota, which is all about clicks per hour and and items.
2 clicks per hour.
Items per
CPM.
hero.
CPM's a weird one, right? Because I don't know what my CPM is, but it's probably quite high. Again, clicks per minute. Yeah.
Is it only clicks? Is it not? What about keyboard per minute?
Oh, I don't know if they count. I'm not into all this stuff. I just know that when I'm playing, it's odd.
I'm kicking ass.
Because I just go, well, sometimes. It depends if I'm playing well. But all the time when I'm playing, it must be insane for anyone to watch. Because when I'm playing like XCOM or something, I just go click, click, and I just sit and don't press the buttons very often. Whereas when I'm playing Dota, I'm like click. I'm clicking like constantly. I'm going click. Even when I'm not doing anything, I go click.
So this is the thing. When I've spectated several people's games, they do this, but they don't. Like that, you'll be clicking to move to the same spot over and over. Why are you one of those people?
Yes, but not quite. I don't ever click to go to the same spot. I think usually what I'll do is I'll click around.
Why is that?
Well, I've seen that a lot, and I don't do that when I play myself.
To keep it straight in your head.
Yeah,
it? So because sort of, if you click on somewhere and then you wander off with your mouse somewhere, your character is going in one direction, your mouse is going in another direction. If you're not, you're not following your mouse around.
Whereas if you click on a location 40 times, you're less likely to forget.
But I had to do that, and even in
real life.
Even in real life, I have to have my hand in front of me at all times, just so I know where I'm going.
It's just good habits, I think, and I think one of the things is that because there are some characters in Dota, like Pudge, who's obviously a really big, fat, meaty bastard who's got a hook. And the way his hook works is that he launches it, and the first thing it hits, whether it's an enemy or whether it's an ally or whether it's one of the kind of units that get in the middle that aren't really part of either team, it just grabs that. And it means that the only way he can land those hooks is by being really good and being like they're running there and firing ahead of them and grabbing them, and that's the skill shots. But often what pudgers will do is just wait until they see someone who's clearly not concentrating. And it's just because basically if you're like, well, I don't need to move anywhere, so I'll just stay stood here. Anytime I see a player who isn't moving, they are bait. Like they are like, anytime I see anyone and they're not moving, I go, I'm going to kill you. Because it shows you two things.
That's in real life.
But that's first-person shooters as well. If you see someone standing still in Team Fortress and they're not, even snipers will like strafe constantly.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing. It's basically this fact that unless you have absolute vision, there's always a chance that somebody might be about to like. You could have Invoker landing a Sunstrike, which is this ranged attack you can do where you can drop it anywhere on the map, and because you might not even be playing against these people, but because you sometimes are, and you get screwed over a couple of times just because you've stood in the one position for longer.
It's like PTSD. You're just running in circles forever.
Yeah, you just do. Yeah, if you're stabbed by a tower, I will just walk in circles, walk around erratically, and I'll just be moving around constantly.
It's funny, I don't think we get older and we think, certain games are too fast. I think you can learn it, but you sort of fall in and out of habits. Like Monster Hunter taught me stamina. Monster Hunter taught me that I can fight a boss and dodge its attacks perfectly for 60 minutes, which is something I wouldn't have said I could do before. But no, you play Monster Hunter and it builds you up slowly, and then you end up doing it. And it was the same with Dota. I'm sure if I had stuck with Dota, I would be one of those.
When would you ever need that stamina in any other
Dark Souls? Sometimes.
Spelunky. At the very end with Spelunky.
Can we just point out that Paul is amazing at Spelunky?
Oh,
I don't know about that.
No, you are.
Yeah, no.
Very few of my friends are really good at a particular game.
That's nice of you to say.
No, it's. I like it when a game.
Have you finished it? I can't finish it.
Really?
No.
When it originally came out as an indie game in like 2009, at that time I didn't have very much money and I had a PC that already hadn't been upgraded for a few years. So indie games actually saved me at that time because I could play indie games on this PC. And one of them was Spelunky, and I just played a lot of Spelunky.
I like that you had to make Spelunky slightly more challenging for yourself by telling long, drawn-out stories over it on your YouTube channel, so that you could distract yourself slightly,
and yet still playing, do amazing,
and yet still get very far.
I thought it was an interesting thing because so many people were recording videos of them playing a playthrough, and particularly if they're doing the daily challenge, and you watch one, you watch the next, it's the same level, and then a lot of people are just saying, "I'm going to jump now." Okay, I just thought it would be interesting to talk about something else than.
But that does actually help. I remember when I was doing the Dark Souls Pantsman thing, a video gamer, where I was just trying to finish Dark Souls and Demon Souls
with your character in his
with
pants.
the character in his pants. Well, I did finish Dark Souls actually physically in my pants as well, which was interesting. Particularly when I turned up at Namco's office next week, and the PR managers asked me, "So have you played Dark Souls?" And I was like, and I thought he was joking. I turned around and went, "Ah," and it's like,
let me tell you,
oh my god,
sir.
I've come for a 1-to-1 session to play Dark Souls 2, and you haven't even looked up. You would have immediately found out that last week I completed this game whilst basically naked live on the internet. Didn't know that. Fuck Namco. Anyway, like Spelunky, it's that weird thing of when I was playing, I couldn't do this boss fight, I couldn't do this section, and so I just started. Somebody was like, "Oh, we'll stop trying to concentrate on the boss fight and start telling us a story or something." And so I was like trying to beat
Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, so I was just like, I was playing Manus on the expansion of Dark Souls, and I just started. I got well far just by basically like I stopped talking about the game and just started making up a story, and I was just breezing through the game.
It's the weird thing. I talk to myself during Dark Souls bosses for don't know why.
I think it's because actually when you lose the focus, you fuck it up.
Yeah.
And actually you know how to do it, and it is all about learned muscle memory, and so when you start thinking about it too much, you distract yourself from that.
Yeah,
if you put your brain somewhere else, it just autopilots, and it's better autopilot.
I find the final level of Spelunky with Olmec, with his, as he repeatedly hammers into the ground, and the idea is he has to dig his own hole. And if you want to be really systematic about it, and you want to find the exit to hell in the current version of Spelunky, you have to try and get him to basically squash
all of it.
the whole level back and forth. So you run, but that gets quite tiring after a while. It does. It's like you were saying about the hour-long fighting a boss. Although actually, as well as talking to characters, Quinn's has a story about talking to Dragon's Dogma party members.
Oh, what?
He said
what was this?
people would start your pawns would say things, and you would find yourself saying
I talked to the
back.
pawns in Dragon Dogma, yeah, because they would chatter constantly, but in a really friendly way, and I would reply to them. And I can't actually think of a game that's done
I
that.
might have done that as well, actually.
But yeah, there's something about the barks in Dragon's Dogma are really human. They're not fake. Like I'm reloading in Gears of War or whatever. It's something like you're fighting a boss, and they say things which, because usually when you're making a game, barks are sort of dependent on a certain thing happening, like look out behind us or cover me or whatever. In Dragon's Dogma, I just remember sometimes they yelled stuff that was just like
Really
or yeah, like I'm just fighting the Cyclops at the very beginning. They were yelling like how dangerous it was and all this stuff. And so one of them would, "This is quite dangerous." Yes, it was like, "Look out for this, sire," and I would say, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Like just talking to them.
Yeah, they were like idiotic children, but I had a lot of fondness for them.
Yeah, they were certainly a thing.
Did you just? There was a little lump in your throat there whenever you said that.
I've got a great fondness. We talked about Dragon's Dogma quite a lot actually in Daft. A couple of episodes ago when it was me, Quinns, and Joe, and then afterwards we sat down probably for about 20 minutes where step by step we went okay and explained the full ending of the game to Quinns, who's never going to play it. Just because it's like you're never going to play it, so okay, but it is amazing.
The ending does sound like a thing. I won't.
No, we're not going to do it.
I just bought it
Well, that's why we're
2 days ago.
Yeah, that's why we didn't record it on the podcast, because it's like it's too good to spoil. But it's for those people who just go, "I'm never going to play it." It's like, okay, sit down, let's make a cup of tea.
So on the subject of me talking to people in Dragon's Dogma, I'll just throw a question wide open. What characters in games did you find yourselves getting really fond of?
That's a really good question.
I remember you liking some Baldur's Gate characters.
Ah,
I'm not. This isn't me trolling you. I'm genuinely like you liked.
No, I did.
If I was trolling, I would say something like you liking some of the women in Baldur's Gate. But I'm not saying that. I'm asking.
I was a lot younger. Bear in mind that the first Baldur's Gate is now 16 years old, so I was almost half my age.
Wow.
When it came out, so I was a teenager, so I'm allowed to have done foolish things.
Hey, I fancied
I was
the hell
pretty
out of
younger, yeah.
Vampire Bloodlines damsel. That's who I liked. She was the rebel with the beret and the bar.
I remember that. I remember conversations about that.
Yeah, damsel. She was great because she just was really mean to you.
We should come back to this because Vampires had some really good characters and really good moments. Generally, the Baldur's Gate games and also Planescape Torment, which are those sort of late 90s Black Isle era, are some of my favourite games ever, and some of the... I mean, I don't think they've aged terrifically well, and I re-reviewed both the Baldur's Gate re-releases for Eurogamer, where I basically
when they did the iPad, the enhanced version.
Yeah, and I said they're very good, but they're actually a little bit clunky, and they're a little bit it's kind of like doing Latin, like doing a dead language that some people are going to get pleasure from, but like D&D second edition mechanics, like actually trying to, you have to learn that to play the game, and you look at it and you just go, this is not intuitive.
No.
But the quality of a lot of the writing and the fact that so much of the game had to be just kind of brought across in text and mostly in dialogue.
I thought Baldur's Gate 2 was spectacular.
I was amazed by some of that.
The
and
end of
Planescapes.
Baldur's Gate 2, where you pick your 6 or 5 party members to go with your protagonist to fight the last boss, and just before you go in, it looks at each of them in turn, and it says what you see when you look at them, and it's your character. You look into this character's eyes, and you notice they're fearless, and why are they even here? But no, they're with you. They must love you. All this kind of stuff.
And I think that's gradually become like a BioWare kind of.
Except it never did it with such verbosity. It's like Mass Effect 2 did it with a very. I guess Mass Effect 3 did have the thing at the end where you meet all the characters on Earth and they're grumpy at you. I can't remember much about it, to be honest. Mass Effect 2 is my Mass Effect. With the suicide mission and all that stuff.
Yeah, Mass Effect 2 is definitely the best of the 3.
I got pretty enamored with the timber. What was it? The timber resistance in Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
which ones were they?
It was.
With Tifa and Barrett?
No, the ones that get killed very early on.
I don't remember this.
It's like Biggs and Wedge get killed.
Oh yeah, because they always have
one called Jesse and like.
Always have Star Wars character names.
It's the resistance group that Barrett is a part of. At the very early,
right at the start.
Yeah, right at the start, and you know the way
they all get killed when the plane collapses.
They try and sabotage something. Like the second thing they try and sabotage in the game, and you're part of this group, and they find out they've been set up or something, and Shinra basically slaughter them, and you have to run past each one of them in turn when you're coming down this big staircase, and you find they're dying, and they're just saying, "Go on without me." And I remember I played this when I was like, I don't know, 13, 14 or something, and I was like, really, really upset because I thought they were being set up as characters that would be with you the whole game. And I would like go over and talk to them like that girl, I think her name was Jessie, like talks to you like she's really kind of that Japanese archetype girl who's like shy and just talks to you and says, and is obviously interested in the main character. And I was just like, this is going to blossom. And I was like, this is going to blossom. Something's going to happen here.
Wow.
And
we all remember Harris's death, but I can't remember.
But no, yeah, this affected me way more than that because I got like probably on the second or third, it was the second disc or something, the game broke and I did not complete it. And 10 years later, I went back and I remembered that whenever I was very young that I had sworn revenge on Shinra Corporation when I was little, and I just realized, like I saw it in the PSN store, and I thought, no, I'm gonna fulfill that pledge. I'm gonna get my revenge. And I downloaded it and I completed it finally, and I just like had this really big feeling of satisfaction having not for dealing with Sephiroth or any like stuff like later. And when I looked at the game, I was like, this isn't as good as I remember.
Just Shinra.
But I just had so much satisfaction for beating Shinra.
I don't know if I've ever hated anything in a game that much or got that much satisfaction. If I hate a boss, it's only because the boss has kicked my ass twice before.
No, I just hated them because they killed pigs and wage.
I'm really impressed that you actually got
fulfilled your
particularly because, and this is the first time I'm probably admitting this, I've completed Baldur's Gate 2, but I never completed the expansion that came after with
the Throne of Ball.
I got really close to the end and I always keep meaning to, and stuff happens and I never do. And I know what happens at the end, and I know you get these horrible kind of epilogues where the weird thing is a lot of the characters don't really live happily ever after, and some of them end up quite lonely. And there's kind of a whole thread through the whole game where I wrote a retrospective for Eurogamer where I said it feels like the party is a surrogate family of people who all kind of, you're in your party because
that was the thing
you
about,
relate to each other.
You pointed
really
out to me
else.
that in Baldur's Gate 2, actually, it's a really downbeat thing because in Baldur's Gate 2, if anyone was a pair in the original Baldur's Gate, they have been sundered. And
I think there's a lot of pairs of people you can meet in Baldur's Gate 1, and I think every pair of people, one of them is dead.
Which is a fascinating thing to do with a sequel, that you set up all these characters and then I couldn't believe it, come to think of it, to this day. It's a hell of a ballsy thing to do narratively, that in Baldur's Gate 1 you have Jakira, and what's it? Khalid. Jakira, and then Jaheira, rather. Jakira would be...
Jakira!
That would be a very different game. But then in Baldur's Gate 2, you start playing and then Khalid just dies immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like, how on earth can you do that? Because these two are a pair. And then it's like, oh, actually, no, it's significantly more interesting to see how Jaheira acts without her partner and how long she takes to get over that.
Yeah, that I hadn't.
There was a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of
amazing. Like, I mean, I just remember being shocked I was quite young as well when I realised that early on, because in the first Baldur's Gate, it had dark stuff, but a lot of it was still a bit shit. A lot of it was like, oh, there's basilisks over there.
Yes.
And a lot of the really enjoyable stuff kind of required you to have like knowledge, like the fact that it's like, oh, it's Drizzt Do'Urden. It's like if you didn't know about. I was like, who's this guy?
Fair,
and
I read the Drizzt Do'Urden books and shat myself when he showed up in Baldur's Gate.
It felt very much like with that one, it felt like you had to have an understanding of Dungeons and
background,
Dragons to get a real appreciation from it. However, with Baldur's Gate 2, it just felt like a much better fleshed out world. But there was a bit where one of the quests early on was like this Tanner you're investigating, and you realised that you were looking for a murderer, and you realised
that was really
Tanner making things out of human skin, and I was just like, what? And realising that like you could actually. I think there was a bit where you got the option to side with him, and you could have.
Baldur's Gate 2 was great.
If you promised not to tell his secret, he would give you some leather armor made of human skin, and it was like, this is crazy. I'm not going to do it. But
I might have could if I wanted.
I actually
so many hidden things.
Oh, that game was massive. I actually rinsed it. I think when I played Baldur's Gate 2, I just wanted to know everything, and I did the same thing with Planescape Torment, but still missed some things there, and Fallout 2. All those games just really, I was obsessed with just reading all of the dialogue and finding out all of the optional things I could do and seeing how far the rabbit holes went, because I love that. Nowadays it's like, do you want to be a good guy, do you want to be a bad guy? It's almost like you've gone to the quest hand-in desk. You're right, love, what are you, a good guy or a bad guy? Bad guy? Right, is an axe of bleeding. They are, on your way. Whereas often it would be these things where if you make one choice it would end the quest immediately, but then if you didn't, you'd often end up spiraling off down these rabbit holes, and it wouldn't just be a case of, oh, you're evil. Cool. Have an evil reward.
I think it was a really self-aware game as well. It was... I hadn't read Watchmen at the time. Quinn's actually lent me Watchmen, the Alan Moore comic, which is kind of the taking superheroes to their logical conclusion, and I read that.
Who really would become superheroes and what happens
would their
afterwards.
lives be like? And I felt like Baldur's Gate 2 was kind of like that for fantasy heroes. It's basically if you spend all your time on the road and you mostly solve problems by killing people, this is what will happen to you. This is the kind of person you end up as.
It's funny, as far as the dark stuff goes, all those like Fallout 1 and 2 and Planescape, these games are able to do such dark storytelling because you are removed by the camera. Thinking about this, there was always something that bugged me about Knights of the Old Republic and Fallout 3, and it's because you just, almost by necessity, you have to lose some of that grit when you view things. And I remember Bethesda streaming of Fallout 3 seemed really pantomime to me and infuriated me.
That's why nobody got attached to Lydia in Skyrim.
Yeah, sure.
Lots of people said they did, and I didn't find
No. They got attached to her for the wrong reasons.
Also mentioning
a hilarious
Skyrim,
puppet.
that was possibly going to have children that you could kill.
Who? In what?
In Skyrim. Was it not the case that modders found that there were originally models of children and possibly dialogue for if
My God, so
children
you
were
could have...
killed?
That might have been Fallout because there was little lamplight, wasn't
I'm
there?
sure there was
Well, no,
a
Fallout 2, there were children, and actually this annoyed me because
Oh yeah, no, Fallout 2 you could kill children in the US.
yeah, only in the US version, but they did a really shonky version of it because it annoyed me because Fallout 2 is a game I played so much.
Fallout 2 is
And
stunning.
There were a couple of quests I couldn't complete, and it was things like I had to go and find people, and I just couldn't find them. And often with this era of games, this is one of the things that many people who are fans like myself overlook is the fact that there was irritating fucking things like doors on the map that you couldn't quite see.
Yes.
And you'd be like, you get stuck for ages, and then be
It
like,
seems like
oh, there's
such
a door there.
But talking about small mechanical failings seems like such a petty thing to complain
But
about.
if they lead into a giant narrative feeling, which is I didn't see any of that, then they're not as petty as they sound.
I mean, like, I got
no.
stuck on like games. I got actually fully stuck on games because I didn't know that I had to click on that bit because that was a cave and not just a wall.
That's-
And I got games that I actually had to stop playing for months until a friend of mine said, "Oh, I'll come around and show you how to do it." And it was like, "What?" But no, I mean, what happened with this is I was just convinced that I must be missing an area or missing something, and then realised eventually they'd just taken the kids out, but they'd left the quests that involved kids.
Really?
So there were a couple where you had to talk to a kid. It's like, oh, can you find my son? It's like, no, I fucking can't. I've been looking for him for 3 years. I've been playing this game for like so long and I've never met him. I always assume that you'd either find his body down a well or like, he must be dead.
You'll find him in real life somewhere and you go, how do I get you back in the game?
How do I push you into
ARG.
the game?
main memory of Fallout 2 was like, I must have played when I was like 12 or 11, desperately trying to figure out how to be a porn star.
Oh, yeah.
Without quite understanding what any of the references in Fallout 2 were. Like, you could...
I learned what a fluffer was.
I learned what a fluffer was in that game.
And my parents had no idea. My mum bought me that in WH Smith's because I wanted it. Because it had a big picture of a cool robot on the front.
Yeah.
I looked at the back of it and thought, oh, cool, this looks like an RPG.
It came in one of those big boxes, didn't it, as well?
Yeah,
and
it had a big box.
And it had recipes in the manual. You remember that?
It did, yeah.
You could have a post-apocalyptic omelette.
That manual, actually, I hope I've still got it somewhere.
Of your
Cooking
later
right
work.
now.
Maybe, yeah. But I was always disappointed by Fallout 3. I enjoyed Fallout 3, don't get me wrong, but it didn't have the same bite. And it didn't have the same... But I always
different
wondered...
game.
Well, it was Bethesda are good at a certain thing, and that is just an enormous transporting open world, whereas Fallout 2 was good at really tight little narrative vignettes.
But also it's the nature of the darkness. I mean, Fallout 3 allowed you to murder women and then chop them up into tiny bits and carry their chunks around. And no, you couldn't chop them up into tiny bits, actually. I'm imagining that.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Blimey.
No, it's because somebody once told me a story about how they'd done that, and then I realised, and it stayed in my head, and actually it's like, no, you didn't, because you can't do that. But no, you could murder people, and like it had some dark stuff in it, right? But then there was nothing as dark as just, I loved the mercenary nature of Fallout 2. I love the way that it was like,
It wasn't always
mission.
trying to make you laugh as well. If nasty stuff was happening, it wasn't just like, oh, it's creepy, kooky. It was just really unpleasant sometimes.
I just love the fact that it wouldn't matter who was involved. It wouldn't matter if some really good, honest people had asked you to go and kill some really bad people. It wouldn't matter what the context of it was. There was always an option to then go and speak to the people who you were supposed to kill and say, these people told me to kill you all. What do you want to do about that? And then they'd be like, well, how about you go and kill all of them? And you're like, all right. You could just there was always a side to everything. And usually, it didn't do anything to stop you from just murder because the faction system works so well within the maps. It'd be this thing of being like, these people would be like, we'll pay you this much money if you kill these people. You go and kill them all, you come back. In the text, they go and open the safe, they give you all the money out of the safe. Thanks very much. Wicked. bang, bang, and then you kill them all. Like I remember in New Reno, the whole
the gangster
place.
Yeah.
Like it would mean that if you could wipe out an entire gang, and it might mean that you walk into the next area and there might be some gangers from their gang who would come at you, but if you shot them dead, everyone else would just go about their business. And it's just that thing of being like you can fuck with one faction, but it probably means you'll have to murder all of them. But after you've done that, no one else really cares.
God, Fallout 1 as well has Did you guys finish Fallout 1? Do you know
I never have.
Do you know how it ends?
I know it ends,
the glorious of the... Go on a quest, save our vault. We need a water chip, and you get the water chip, and you save the day, and you kill the super mutants and all that. And you go back, and the head of the vault says, listen, you've done so much for us. You've gone out into the wasteland, you've saved us. But if we let you back in, you're going to be an inspiration to all the kids, and then they'll want to leave as well. So we're going to have to ask you to leave. And if you had, sort of above zero karma, you turned and you walked away, and you got a ending, like FMV still, whatever, about how you wandered. And then Fallout 2 starts with you having started this insane, weird tribal thing. But if you have negative karma, you whip out a shotgun, blow off half the overseer's body, and then walk off. And there's an animation unique to him where he's only got one arm, one leg, and half his torso's open, and he starts trying to crawl back into the vault with his intestines trailing behind him. It's the nastiest thing in the whole game.
Wow.
But if you have negative karma, I guess the developers assumed you wanted to see that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Goodness.
Going back to Baldur's Gate, actually, one of the things that always made me laugh about the pairs is, do you remember that there was a point where really early on you met the first evil characters?
Yeah.
And there was a tall guy and a short guy.
Yeah.
What I would always do, and it was just a tradition every time I played this game, because I was shit at it, I died all the time and I'd start again. But I would always let them join my party, go into the customization options, make them be wearing matching pink and purple tops and trousers, and then get them to leave my party and just leave them there. So I'd leave them in the exact same spot that they were, waiting on this road, being nefarious, but wearing fetching matching pink trousers and purple tops.
Oh my God.
That gave me a lot of pleasure.
That's amazing.
All the traditional thing in Baldur's Gate, it's like that. It's just the weird lover's tiff of you talk to someone, I need you to leave the party. There's no place for you here anymore. But first, I'm just going to take your trousers and your shoes and your rings and your money.
That is it.
You got anything else? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll have that.
There's a good sketch in that. Just a couple of things. What's that? Nothing. Can I just have your helmet? Yeah, all right. And can you take that off as well?
The worst
What do you want? No, nothing. I just want to put it.
I just want to see it.
Just have a look at it. Can you take that sword as well, please? What do you mean? I need it. Or you can have this one. This one's rubbish. Oh, it's fine. Sorry about this, but actually, I've decided that it's time for you to leave. I want to it's mine.
What's
you see?
that? Stuff you just gave me.
See, that's mine.
Yeah.
But the worst thing is if someone dies,
there's no way to do that.
No, there is. It's just everything that they have in there, like the helmet on their head and the armor on their body, everything sort of falls off in a big pile. And because everything takes up one inventory slot, you then have to pick up each one of their rings, and then their sword, and then their shield, and then their helmet, and then their boots, and then all the things that were in their individual pockets, every potion. Not just their body and be resurrected.
Oh, wait, you have to carry all their gear.
Everything erupts out of them.
And then you go for the resurrection spell and they wake up running
If they haven't exploded, because if they take too much damage, they just explode.
Yeah, and that's the thing I remember really frustrated me. Like, people would get turned to stone and then broken and then they were just dead.
Yeah.
And that was really annoying.
Well, it was weird because you knew playing Baldur's Gate that... If it was made today, no one could ever lose a character in Baldur's Gate. No one's ever like, I fought Basilisk and Minsk died. Oh, that's really sad.
Can lose characters.
Oh, no, I know, but I'm saying any human being would reload the game.
Yeah.
Because there's so much love put into those characters. And so if they did it today,
and that was
a fight, everyone would stand back up.
And that was a major quibble and problem with those things. Is this especially affected lots of games, but RPGs were the worst because you get so immersed in the game, right? You get so into it that you would forget to save. And then you'd be like 2 hours in, and then something horrible would happen, and you'd realise that you'd lost so much stuff.
Yeah, I've done that.
That's the best way to play them, is to just not go back. When I played Mass Effect or any game like that recently, there's no going back policy.
But that's fine in Mass Effect because you can still finish the game.
You don't lose characters.
Baldur's Gate, you could quite easily you die, and it'd go, and the only option would be load game or quit game, and you'd be like, fuck's sake.
Yeah, there'd be these weird character things like in Mass Effect, like whenever it wouldn't necessarily tell you what your, say, when you get the trigger to do the renegade action and the Paragon action.
Sometimes he breaks an
you wouldn't know exactly what he's going to do. And I remember he's talking to the reporter, and I thought, oh well, he's just gonna say something snarky to her. And I pressed the renegade action, and he welt her in the face, and I just shouted at the screen, "No!" I just shouted, "Don't do that!"
I'd love to know. Actually, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask when I was out in BioWare for Mass Effect 3 stuff, and I did want to. Because I've always wondered if the reason they did that was just to show you that. Like the fact that up until that point, the renegade actions are always like, pull a gun on someone. But you think in this context, you think, yeah, it shocked the hell out of me as well. Because I was like, this woman's very rude, get out of my face. And then he punched her in the face. I was just like, what the? But I wonder if maybe
the thing is, I couldn't, because I was by my code, I couldn't go back and like take that back.
Oh, no, I
just
like,
either. Now my character is a slightly like nasty person to his enemies, really nice to his friends, and also a horrible like domestic abuser, like just a really, really nasty man.
That's it, savior of the universe, but a real piece of work.
So what? Cool. I mean, going back to what Quinn said, what characters then did you guys really?
I think mine. I've been thinking about this. I think I don't know. I remember being very fond of the frog in Chrono Trigger.
Oh,
really?
I don't know why. Yeah, frog.
Not the frog, but frog.
I don't know why. I think just
he's touching. He's really noble and sweet. Well, actually, no. The only reason you like Frog, I'll be honest, is because he has a kick-ass soundtrack.
That's the thing. He had an amazing.
Oh yeah! Oh, you're giving me shivers.
It's an amazing piece of music, but also because he was kind of a bit weird and mysterious. And I think you might have eventually found out why he was a frog, but it was always a bit vague.
No, he's in. Yeah, no, it's because he was cursed by Magus.
Oh yeah, that's it. I remember now.
He was like a noble warrior who became a noble frog.
But I just like the idea of a frog knight who was, despite the fact that he'd been turned into a frog, he wasn't like miserable.
Yeah, he wasn't
still
like
I am a knight.
He was inspiring.
I liked him, but also I think the character weirdly I got really obsessed with was I don't even know his name. Really, I can't remember his name anyway. But he was a character in the game which I think in the UK and maybe Europe was called Story of Thor, which is dumb as fuck because I don't even think there was a character in the game called Thor.
When did it come out?
It came out in the 90s. It was for the Mega Drive and also it was Mega Drive and the Saturn as well.
I didn't know the Mega Drive had any characters at all.
Hey, it was good. The Mega Drive had some good games.
Cool Spot was pretty cool.
Cool Spot had a rich and complex narrative.
He was rad, man. I should have fancied some 7-Up. But no, there was basically it was also called Beyond Oasis. I think it was more commonly known as Beyond Oasis. And I think it's widely received as being like an okay action RPG.
Widely received as okay. That was printed on the box.
I loved it though. This was the period where I was renting games from Blockbusters and having that thing of being like, you rent a cartridge and you take it home, you play with it for 3 days, and then usually because you're a child, you can't then just take it back and renew it because your parents are like, we have to take it back now. And you're like, can I have it again? And they're like, no. Because it was a treat in the first place, right? So then what you'd have to do is you'd have to take the cartridge back to Blockbusters and then just hope that by the time you got to rent it out again, whoever had rented it out in the meantime hadn't deleted your data slot.
Oh, wow.
And I had this with a few things. And I had this with a game called Soleil as well, which, somebody had deleted my data slot. The fucker. Because they weren't even all being used. So,
anyway, wow. But he wanted to be number one in the list.
I know. That's why I think I actually got tactical about it in the end and started choosing like number 3 or 4. Just because I was like, well, then the egotistical twats can have their way. But this game was awesome. Basically, the way it works is it had a very vague bit at the start and it had kind of quite chilling music. And it was this idea that this blonde-haired kind of Aladdin-y style type lad found this armlet, and it was a gold armlet with a blue
Oh
jewel
my god, I played this. Yeah.
You fire the
yeah, that was like a top-down explorer. It was hard as nails.
It was really hard, but I loved it because it had lots of really...
You could turn into shapes.
And that's the thing, at the time, it was actually really advanced for like all the things you could do in it and the systems. Like you could equip weapons and you could find weapons, and so weapons would have like better swords, would only have a certain amount of usage before they break, but they'd have different attack animations, you had combos. It was kind of like a bit like Zelda, but with loads of weapons.
Zelda, but I remember the sprite art was trying harder.
Yeah, the sprite art was really cool, and it had like really big enemies and different enemies, and really some of the areas were really creepy, and it did like awesome stuff like these zombies where if you were hitting them with swords that had slashing attacks, sideways slashing. You kill them really easily, but then you'd have the top half of their body, like you cut them in half, and the top half would crawl towards you.
I'm not very scared of a zombie's legs, if I'm honest.
No.
The top half crawls towards you,
The top
right? I thought
half,
you
yeah.
meant the legs are still
The legs just, I'm gonna
kicking
get you.
and
That sounds really interesting.
It was, for the time, it was actually really accomplished. And then to also with stuff like to hit the things on the ground, you had to use a downward attack, even though
But it didn't like do terribly well.
Well, I think
it did fine.
I think it did okay, but I've just never really met anybody.
I
who's
remember
played
it being. It's not like Zelda where you breeze through and have a beautiful time. It was hard work.
It was really hard, but the thing that excited me about it, and I think the thing that captured my imagination, and I think it's one of the first games that really did, was this armlet. And the way you'd start off the game, and it was hard as nails, and you were just useless, basically. You were just like not very good with a knife, and you had to try and fight off these dudes in your village. But then you realised that this armlet you got was your power, and the way it worked was that you'd fire this little thing off of it, and it would go, phew, and if it, whatever element it hit, and you'd have to unlock all four of them. But you start off and you go and you meet the water fairy and the water god, and then it meant that if you fired it and this little thing which would fall down, if it landed in water, it would summon a water fairy, and then you could press other buttons to do like almost like Golden Axe style like magic.
Oh yeah.
And you'd be able to have, like, if you tap it once, it would do a small spell, tap it two, it would do other ones. And it'd be a combination of things like, some of them would be things that you'd need for puzzles. You could use a bubble from the fairy to put out flames, or you could, like, tap it 3 times and get big water tsunami. But it was just awesome because you got that. But the interesting thing was you got, like, one for fire as well, which was, like, just this hulking, fiery, and I still even remember specifically the animations. It just like this, they were awesome animations. And there was one where you got a plant where it was basically like a chain shot, like a piranha plant that would basically just burrow up next to enemies and just start eating them. And
so what was the character that
well, the character was this guy with the armlet, and it was the armlet.
Oh, the protagonist.
It was the protagonist, yeah. And it wasn't really him as a character, it was more this armlet. I became really obsessed with it because it set up the story of being like, you got this gold armlet, but then there was this other character who found a silver armlet, and he was the evil guy. And it was just this idea, it was quite a simple story really. So two boring people who both find these armlets, and one of them's good and one of them's evil, and you've got to stop them. But it was this idea of being able to like have a magical arm that you could point at something and then summon that as an element.
That's very enchanting if you're a kid, imagining being able to do that.
In the same way that lots of games since have made me I've gone away with me into the real world. Like GoldenEye's grenade launcher always made me imagine blowing up cars with it, and Portal was a great one.
Yeah, I was going to say,
you see high up white walls and you go, I could do that.
I get obsessed with Jet Set Radio's Rocket Boots, and imagine it. And like if sometimes I'm on the street or in a car, I will imagine using the boots to trace my horizon and what I would jump to.
Yeah.
But games that give you an object which you would love to have in real life are.
And I think that was the thing, is I remember trying to make one like out of like tinfoil and stuff. Obviously not expecting it to work, you've got to understand. But it was really creepy because one of the things you got was shadow, and it was like you'd be able to, like, when you summon the shadow spirit, it would literally just be your shadow would be a bit darker, I think. Ooh. And then you'd be able to cast this thing where like you just see like your shadow would move from behind you and just creep out along the ground and be able to grab things and pull them towards you.
That's one of the first weird things I ever remember seeing in any video game ever is Prince of Persia in like the late 80s.
Oh, the Shadow Prince!
You jump through a mirror and something happens and the shadow separates and you went, what? And then you have to meet it again later and fight it.
Yeah,
but you're not supposed to fight it, and I couldn't figure that out because I was like 8.
Oh, you have to run away.
Oh, you have to try and merge with it and trick it or something. Yeah,
you had to trick it into
putting its sword away and just merging. I think.
Yes, that was it.
Oh yeah, you had to put your sword away.
It did everything you did, so you put your sword away and did as well, and then yeah. Oh, Prince of Persia really frightened me as a kid.
It was a bit weird.
No, honestly, like I was really young.
It's that.
It was the noise of it when you land
the weird era of like really hyper detailed pixel platformers.
Yes.
The same as what's that one? The famous one where you get transported into the future and another world. I remembered that because I was going to say you get transported to another world.
What could it possibly be?
Oh yeah, another world. No, but yeah, those things had crazy.
It made me cry. It made me cry when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah, because my friend had it at his house, and he had like I can't remember, it was an Amstrad or something, and
Prince of Persia or Another World.
Prince of Persia, not Another World. Just because they had games on it, and I remember them saying like, I was like, oh, what's Prince of Persia? And my friend said, oh no, that game is really scary. Because we must have been really young, and I was like, oh, it can't be scary. Like at that point I didn't understand the concept that a game could be scary. And so I was like, it can't be scary, let's have a go. And I had a go. And it was quite I think it had a real sense right from the start, and the fact that it was the first game I ever played where it starts, you don't know what you're doing, and you have a timer. Immediately, it's like, you've got this long to finish the game. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And the controls were quite complicated, and the scenario was quite oppressive. The scenery and the place was quite oppressive.
Poor Matt.
And I got really stressed. And then I just walked and fell into a trap and just saw the guy impaled on spikes, saw the blood, and they went amidst horrible noise. And it horrified me. Really scared me. I think my mum always said, Prince of Persia made you cry. So I'm not old enough to remember it, but yeah, it's scary fucking. And it's amazing now, you look at that, you go, how could anybody be upset or scared?
I remember at the time that you've got the metal kind of jaw things that come up and down. You've got the spikes. There are a number of things in it that are very sudden death.
I remember the tiles that they look a little bit uneven when you walk on them, and they start to shake whenever you stand on them, and then they drop, and you just...
This is Spelunky, though, with the spikes and all the things that just suddenly kill you, and it's like, sorry, done, goodbye.
Yeah, it was the fact that I think for me, it was the timer. It was the fact that it was the equivalent of like being dropped into Spelunky or Dark Souls or something, and somebody going, you've got 10 minutes. I was like, what? Because all you wanted to do in Prince of Persia was, because you had the ability to hold down shift, I think, or whatever it was, and walk and very gently edge forward, which meant that you'd be able to see traps and you'd be able to like not trigger traps and stuff. You just wanted to edge through, but it's like it was constantly doing things like, oh no, you've got like 10 seconds to get through this door, and it's making you like pelt around where if you mistime the jump slightly, then I didn't even, for years, get to the sword fighting bits. Didn't get the sword.
I know, I got
just
about
for
3
the
screens past.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't know if I could even do it now. But just for the record, then, the armlet firing RPG guy was the RPG character that you liked?
I think it was the idea of the armlet, just because I never played the game.
You wanted to cut off the man's hand and take his armlet.
This is the most antisocial thing ever. We've asked what character in a game, and you've gone from, well, it was really the protagonist, so basically me. Well, basically the item I had. The item you were wearing is your favourite relationship in a life.
No, it's not true. My favourite relationship with a game character, I don't know. I've had... I think a lot of this thing is, I think there've been a lot of them over the years. I'm a character relationship whore.
I can say all of the Baldur's Gate people.
Well, that's it. Like most of the people in Planescape Torment, like a lot of the, especially the party members. I think my Mass Effect relationship with Garrus, I loved Garrus a lot.
Garrus is quite the guy,
and that's why it's kind of like the fact that I get annoyed when people complain about saying Mass Effect 3 was a rubbish ending. It's like, you telling me? Like, I just felt like so much of that game felt like a brilliant ending. Like that bit where you go and shoot cans on a roof with Garrus, and you just like,
my Garrus died, so I wouldn't know.
Oh well, you have this wonderful bit where you just
I've YouTubed the hell out of it.
Oh yeah, you just go like, let's go and you basically go, hey Garrus, do you want to go and just spend some time together? And he's like, yeah. And it's like, he's not a stupid guy, you're not a stupid guy, and you kind of know that the subtext of this conversation is, we might both be dead soon. Do you want to just spend some more time together before that might happen? And he's like, yeah. And it was just like, it was so touching, this moment of them just being like talking. And it's just like, what I loved about that game was that stage in the game where you can go and spend time with all the characters, because all of those sections are pointless. Like there's no like character development in them, really.
There's no loyalty, but
there's no loyalty, there's no thing that can happen, there's no like revelation. It is very much just a case of, as a player, you know that you get a sense that they might be dead soon, because it's already killed off some of your favourite characters quite early on. It's a kind of warning shot. It's gone, boom, oh shit, this is on, we might kill everyone. Oh dear. And it's just nice, because it's one of those, I always think great narrative works when you're in the same mindset as the characters.
Yeah, sure.
You kind of feel like that was a nice parody.
I remember with Brendan, we had an amazing time. We finally got The Last of Us, and I just became instantly fascinated with it. Tess? Is Tess her name? Joel's female companion who he has from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What's her name?
I can't remember. I haven't played it for a while.
Matt, any?
With the what, sorry?
Joel's female friend at the beginning of Last of Us.
Oh, I can't remember.
Okay.
I remember her very distinctly, but I'm very bad with names.
But I find that relationship is like one of the, for me at least, one of the most beautifully realised things.
They never like
the amount of clues in that first scene where she comes back from a deal and he says, "Where have you been?" and she says, and then she says, "What do you care?" And he goes to check her arm, and she pulls her arm away. The amount of clues in that, it's like, They care about each other. He's told her not to do it, so they're that kind of invested. She refuses to let him touch her.
Yeah.
I always got the
later on. There's some stuff as well.
That's also more subtle, and then some stuff that's on the nose, and that is just a beautiful. I felt respected as a gamer at that point.
Yeah,
that's why I was kind of annoyed when they had that.
But I just think The Last of Us just learned good things from TV as opposed to most video games, which just learn all the bad things from movie and TV and repeat them all, like all the catchphrases, like "We've got company."
I do remember being slightly annoyed in terms of that game doing subtle things from TV. When you meet that character who's gay, and I was like, "Is he gay? I think he might be gay." And then at the end, as he's saying goodbye and helping you push the Jeep out of his town, there's a journal in that house where his partner writes saying, "I don't even love you," and it's basically all but saying, "Hey, gay friend, I'm not as gay as you thought," and it's really on the nose, and it's like, oh well, I felt clever for working that out, but if you felt the need to do that, okay,
that's fair enough, because I didn't clock it at all. Like, I didn't clock it normally at all, so it was actually useful for me.
It was he wasn't being gender specific when he was talking about his partner, and in sentences where it would have made sense, he didn't use it was odd. And there was only one bed, I think, in there. I can't remember. There were a few weird things. I say weird. It was very strange. I don't know what they were getting up to.
What could they possibly have been doing?
What were they doing? Strange.
To be honest, I like a lot of the stuff in Last of Us. I thought it was very good.
It's just a bit of a masterpiece. Really.
I think it is. I mean, it felt very much like end of an era as well. Though. It felt like it had taken everything that we'd learned this generation about.
It felt like the end of the PS3 era, yes, for sure.
And that's why it's almost like, I don't know, it wasn't groundbreaking, it was just like, this is fucking good. It's just strong, really strong. And I think what they did wonderfully with what they learned from TV was actually editing. In terms of how they changed from scene to scene. Many video games use loading screens as a fade to black. As just being like, that scene's over, loading screen. And they kind of think, well, it's fine because we faded to black.
Yeah.
And then there's a loading screen and it fades out of black.
And they just cut away, they cut huge swathes of time out, just huge bits of time. Because they thought, right, that's non-essential. Let's just glaze over that black screen. Next bit.
Yeah, they literally go black screen. Months have passed.
Yeah,
and I like the bits. Even sometimes there's one bit where like Joel just he lies down and he closes his eyes and then literally just cuts. It's morning now, and it's just like it doesn't need to do a fade to black and then a fade.
I even remember all the cuts are really effective. That cut in particular because Joel's just exhausted and he genuinely falls asleep as soon as he closes his eyes.
And then it's like, it's day.
And then the hilarious one where the girl, I forget her name, Ellie, is in the car and she's like, I'm not tired, why would I go to sleep? Hard cut, it's raining outside, she's passed out in the back of the car.
Right, let's do some questions.
Hey,
questions. We didn't have time for many last time at all.
Is that the question sting?
Yeah, that's me just trying to find the one because I've somehow span off massively.
I thought you faved them.
There was I usually do, but I'm using my phone because we're not recording from the same location. Somebody actually says we were all talking about quirky Japanese games on the podcast, episode 5. He said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Attack of the Friday Monsters. I've actually been playing that a little bit this week. I've got to be honest, Attack of the Friday Monsters, for me, is a bit too fucking twee. I like the idea. I like the idea, and at times I think this is quite nice. But it's
that's the one which is like a.
You're set in Japan in the 60s.
Yeah.
It's a nice idea.
It's it's a sort of gentle story.
Someone also asked about Katherine. Someone asked, what do you think about Catherine's morality?
I thought actually Catherine's morality system was really good.
I thought it was fine because I thought it was nice to see just how other people answered the question and how much of a jerk you might be.
The morality thing of at the end when the whole story thing on morality, it shot itself in the foot. In the foot, the other foot, both kneecaps. It shot itself in the head.
The whole game shot itself in the foot when it just went off the deep end.
Yeah, I was really annoyed it did that because up until that point, I was actually loving the story. And they should have just kept it as a straight up story because what I liked about that was when it asked you those questions, you didn't feel like you were answering it was you.
Yeah.
It wasn't Vincent.
It's the sort of questions. What I liked about that was it was a video game that I knew when I was playing it, I would not feel comfortable playing that game with a partner or family in the room.
Not.
And I feel that about a lot of video games, but for the wrong reasons. I feel, as we talked about when we were talking about a lot of this stuff in the previous podcast about how it's like often Japanese games can feel needlessly embarrassing when you want to be able to celebrate it and you kind of go, yeah, it's good, but it's got all these weird stuff in
Katherine,
it.
though, you don't want to play in front of people for the right reasons.
Yeah, because it's like, obviously it does have all the titillating stuff as well, but it's part of the story and it makes sense. But it's the fact that he goes like, hey, would it ever be right to do this? And you're kind of like, you start to actually really ask yourself questions about the sort of person you are.
It's not even that they ask, would it be right to do this? They just ask you, would you do that?
And
you have to just be honest with yourself and go, oh man, yeah. Well, that's the thing that makes up like left or right or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't say.
The thing I found funny playing it with you is the timing of it, because you'd be playing it and you'd select your answer. And then I'd go, what? You would do that to a woman? And then, because after you make the selection, you immediately go into the level, you're like, yeah, but why wouldn't you? But already you're climbing blocks.
Trying to explain to you.
While the level's begun, and you're frantically trying not to fall off.
I think that was
nice
the biggest thing that annoyed me about Katherine was that just the block puzzle thing was just a bit.
I think the block puzzle was less annoying.
It's just something you had to get through, like
to get more
to get to the next like little story bit.
Mosscat, might as well ask this as we have the full shut up and sit down crew here pretty much. Are there any good video game to board game conversions?
Video game to board game? Board game to
Or
video
vice versa?
Oh, okay.
There is an Eve board game, but I've never played it.
No, there's no good video game board. Oh, God.
I don't think so.
Well, there are lots of them, but I always get the impression that
They're all...
They're based
not
on the
that-
franchise,
or
like
published by
Bioshock
Cryptozoic.
Infinite. It's
Yeah,
more
there's
like
a-
you're selling the franchise than an interesting game.
Yeah, honestly, if people are listening to this, if you ever see a video game on the cover of a board game, as yet, you don't need to buy it. Licenses in general.
That's worth knowing though, because I mean, actually, like that's true to an extent in video games, but it's good to know that there aren't like any that are really, really good.
There are something like, I mean, the Game of Thrones board game is great, but it's based on a license, but not a game.
Yes, actually, exactly. No, there are a good license.
But even I feel like the Game of Thrones board game, I've played that a bit, and it's like I feel like if it wasn't Game of Thrones,
I think it would be okay if it was.
it would be okay.
Yeah.
But it's not a better strategy game.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's fun if you know the theme, but it's
On the other hand, though, board game to video game conversions, there are a bunch of
Loads,
good.
yeah.
There are loads. The number of good ones is probably about 5% of them. But anything made by what's the people that make Eclipse and I can't remember. Ascension is a great deck building game that was actually designed for iOS first. And then had a physical
Turned into a
version as an
physical thing.
afterthought. Yeah. So Ascension is great. You've been playing Agricola and having an okay time with that.
Yeah, well, a lot of stuff turns into apps.
Yeah, exactly. It's really just apps. If you have an iPad, that's where you're going to find a good board game
Yes.
apps. Anything else, basically screwed.
fair enough. Well, we got a bunch of questions about what Nintendo can do to turn around the Wii U's fortunes, and I've covered this in the past. Nothing. And I'm not joking. It is just fucked. They've pulled out as many big guns as they can, and now it's fucked. But anyway, I'm not saying that as a negative thing. It's a great shame, and I'm looking forward to buying a Wii U at some point. But they can't. If they've brought out all these amazing Mario games, and they've got Mario Kart coming out soon. If that's not doing it, they're fucked.
Why can't they do lots more exciting stuff with an extra screen?
I don't know.
Is it like a hidden secret thing?
Nintendo are the masters of inventing really, really awesome, interesting systems, using them for one thing at the point at which they're released, and then talking about the potential and never doing it. Like, do you remember with the GBA link-up cable with the...
Yes.
It's about install base,
Just
though, isn't
never
it?
do it.
Like, I'm sure there'd be cool things on Wii U if there were... they sold more, and I'm sure the link cable would be more useful if everyone had a link cable.
Well, no, that's not true, because then you had the whole thing with, I remember when the Wii came out, it's like, oh, hey guys, they had that amazing idea with the GBA link cable, it was a pain in the arse. Now you've got shitloads of Wii consoles, shitloads of Nintendo DS's, go to town. And they never did it. And now they've got quite a lot of 3DS's.
Well, they probably feel like they've been burned from when it didn't work in the past.
No, they're basically like Nintendo. I love them and I do love their games, but they have to get up to speed on their stuff. Their connection, their internet-based things are like so
yeah.
The Wii U is like having your tits ripped off. It's unbelievable.
It's just-
Updating
I
the
quite
Wii-
liked going on and drawing stupid pictures.
I
and
love
getting
that.
Getting
That's
little
awesome.
feeds.
Miiverse is Miiverse. Miiverse is amazing, but updating the Wii U is like I've
pulling
used
teeth.
my analogy. Yeah,
there's no
there is
analogy.
no other word.
I just loved going on and painting loads, like a picture of
Don't get me wrong, yeah, I love all of that.
just terrifying versions of the fairy from Zelda with big sharp teeth,
Yeah,
and then
sure.
seeing all the expressions on every Mii's face as it looks at this drawing like
How
someone's
does
done
this
in
drawing make you
fright.
feel?
The thing is, I love all of that stuff, and I wouldn't want them to ever change that stuff. But it's just simple shit like that other people are right now are nailing. Like, I don't have a PS4 yet, and I'm not that bothered about getting one in the immediate future. However, I am probably soon going to buy a PS Vita. And the reason I'm going to buy a PS Vita is because they've got all this cross-platform play. And it means that I'm going to buy that thinking, there are some Vita games I want to play. And also knowing, it's like, I can buy games for a Vita, knowing that eventually, when I get a PS4, I'll have games for it. And I know that I'll have like... And if they've done that on the 3DS, if they've made it so some of the games I've been buying on the 3DS I could play at home on a console screen as well, maybe with save files linking wirelessly and all this stuff, I would have bought one by now. And it just feels like they've got an install base on the 3DS, and why they're not copying Sony right now, I just don't get it.
But like I say, the script very quickly. Were any of you guys at Res this in Birmingham? I feel really bad. I can't remember the name of the game, but there was a game about taking 4 marine type people into a ship, alien style, and you play it partly with a tablet and partly with a screen. And the screen shows you what the members of your squad can see and where they are, and the tablet is where you tap to issue them orders. It's just 2 screens doing 2 really different things. And you feel like you're in control of the squad because you've got their map and their data, and then you're looking at the camera feeds from everyone.
What's it for?
This was kind of a PC.
It's very early alpha at the moment, isn't it?
Very, very early, and I feel bad. I can't remember
It's
the
a
name.
PC game with a tablet required.
Yeah, so I don't know what the appeal will be, but
aside from a really good student project,
it's an interesting idea. But it's just like the Wii already has that. It's already got a screen and a big TV, and what you're gonna do?
Don't get me started. You know, it's.
I honestly think that at the moment it's too late. Like, it's lost the steam. It needed to make some ground before the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One came out, because now the problem they've got now is everyone's going, oh, well, they can still maybe do it. It's like, no, because we're at the point now where post E3, we're coming up to Christmas number 2 for these consoles. We're going to get a price drop on them, and that's it. Like, as soon as you've got as soon as you've got the PS4 being like less than 300 quid with a game, like, the Wii U's boned.
Ian Bogost wrote an amazing article on Gamasutra when the Wii, like, this was a year ago, but talking about how the Wii U was Nintendo going, you don't fucking know what's going on. We're going to make something cheap and sell it for you. And it's like, you've got hardcore gamers going, but how will the Wii U compete? Nintendo don't probably care that much. This is a really, really tough time for AAA. And Nintendo don't want to spend God knows how much Sony.
They're just basically sitting it out by fielding a really bad team like it's a Eurovision song.
Yeah, it is. No, that is a perfect analogy. Look at everything that Nintendo have made recently has been affordable to make, whether it's a Wii U or a DS or the Wii. Like, it's working out for them. Or at least the Wii works out for them so much.
And that's the thing is, you know what? It doesn't matter. Like, that's the thing is,
Nintendo care less about succeeding than gamers.
Just for the record, I'm going to stop reading these questions, even now mentioning them in the future podcast, because it's the same conversation every time. And the fact that the Wii U is fucked, but it doesn't matter because they've got so much money. They'll do something else, and the next thing might be crap, but then after that they'll do something and it'll be great, and they'll be fine again. They've got they don't waste their money. They don't piss it away.
Yeah, God knows how much Microsoft has lost so much on so far on the Xbox One.
Oh God!
But Nintendo probably don't have that kind of money to lose.
No, I think they've got a lot. I think they made a ton of money.
The Wii probably just
Who knows?
I think because they haven't expanded. That's the thing is they're not like a company that's gone, oh great. They haven't done the American thing of being like, well, now we're going to have an office in every corner. They're quite. We'll see. But
every corner of this building
and a corner in every office.
This is an easy one. Varta says, do you still enjoy doing shut up and sit down?
No.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's a pain in the ass. So what? We have to play games. We have to dress up on video.
It's a
pain in the ass.
It's horrid.
Brendan.
This podcast has been
always Brendan.
No, we do enjoy the easy reason that we enjoy doing shut up and sit down.
You got there.
Is that our fans who all donate know that the site will die in its ass if we ever stop having fun. So what we have to do is just spend an amount of time each week having fun, which makes it a pretty good job, if I'm honest.
We've got a kind of a flexible remit as well, haven't we? Which is also a nice thing that we
we are also encouraged to cover whatever we're interested in, which is why we're about to start a Star Wars RPG.
When Quinn says get together every week to have some fun, he means put the rest of us in what he likes to call the arena, but which is actually just a closet full of old hangers, and we have to fight.
I'm getting really good at it, though.
You're pretty good at the arena. Yeah. I've got a lot of scars.
I'm level 8, which means I get to hold 2 coat hangers. But
we're very lucky. There's a lot of interesting things to try.
I think that's it, and I think actually I had a couple of questions about especially because there's been some more controversy recently about the way that lots of people say YouTubers, but really we're talking about here YouTube companies, like companies founded on YouTube that have become media entities that with aspirations to transcend YouTube as a platform and take over the world, etc. And I think that's a lot of that's really dodgy, and a lot of that I kind of like quietly knew about. That was sort of how it was happening, and that's why I wanted to get away from that, and that's why I was shut down doing the Patreon thing. But lots of people asked me there's a few questions this week about that, relating to do you think that the Patreon's the future? It's the same with Shut Up and Sit Down. I think it's this thing of like it's perfect for when you've got things that are the people who are doing it really enjoy doing that, but that what they do is not
financially viable
using the old system, like using advertising, because the advertising model is so dependent on getting huge numbers of views. I mean, the stuff I'm doing, I can't tell any of the specifics, but the stuff I'm doing with the Escapists, with the Game of Thrones Abridged, the contracts I signed with them, but like way before I started doing the Patreon thing, it's kind of that old school model thing where it's like, I'm getting paid based on people watching it, but the numbers I need to get are kind of like unrealistic. Like in order to like really make much cash.
Yeah, that's just big companies saying that the bigger they have all these margins to choose from, and they just choose the bigger margin. You know what I mean? Like a movie. If a movie doesn't make above a certain amount of profit, even if it makes a really good profit, it won't get a sequel.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
but also it's like I think at the moment the thing that I think is really important to remember is it's not like the sort of crowdfunding platforms are going to replace the traditional ones. It's just they're really useful for specific types of things. And it's like if you run a YouTube channel and what you love doing is making videos about kill compilations from Call of Duty or making videos about Minecraft, you don't need it, because if you're doing something that is already has the potential to be popular enough to be then it can be.
I think the interesting crowdfunding success this week was an EVE Online player who wanted to write a book on the history of the empires of EVE Online. Oh, wow. And he last I checked, he was like 5 days in, he'd made 4 times what he wanted. He sat on $100,000. I mean, obviously he'll have to fulfill sending out books. I don't know if he's doing a print version, but assuming he is, to all the backers. But it's a great idea. That's a good example of crowdfunding, a really great service which appeals enormously to some people.
It'll be excellent so long as he can write it in a compelling way to the non-player.
I don't think
even in an accessible. No, but I just mean from a historian's point of view, you need to write accessibly.
Since when do historians care about writing accessibly?
Oh, the best ones do, though.
Oh, no, sure, but the historians read that book and then write their own accessible book.
That's a really good example of what I was just saying, though, in the fact that, like, if somebody wanted to write a history of EVE, then they would have to pitch it to a publisher.
I mean, they'd be laughed out of the publisher.
Oh, they'd probably be laughed out of it. But even if they weren't, the publisher would be like, well, okay, but you have to write it to be accessible to anyone. Whereas obviously actually what they've done here is they've been like, well, no, I want to write it so the people who understand EVE will just be able to get the most out of it. You'd never be able to do that. But he can with this. Because all the people funding it are people who already know about it. So it's specialist from the start, and that's fine because all the people who bought it are going to be specialists. Because I can't imagine people who fund it
on a whim,
Oh, EVE Online, I've heard about that. Yeah, I'll put $30 on a book.
That's the only thing then. Well, EVE Online, I like it, but I'm not a specialist in it, so I would like to read. I'll read the abridged version of that guy's book.
The Cliff Notes. I think it's not even just crowdfunding though, because what we do at Shut Up and Sit Down is slightly different in that we do offer a physical product, and it's. I don't know. I think the internet right now is just 1,000 different ways of making money. One of which is probably perfect for you. Whether that's selling, your socks on Etsy or doing gold club bags like we do, or just asking for money, which some people do. It's complicated.
Maybe I should just do that, just ask for money.
I think the thing is, it is complicated.
20p, mate. Here at 20p.
I have. Oh my God, it works.
It's a cliche, and obviously, I'm in a biased position to say this, but I think it's a Wild West, and it is a case of the fact that because it's a Wild West at the moment, because we are in this new territory, there are a lot of people doing unscrupulous things. But I think a lot of the people who are doing unscrupulous things are actually on the traditional media funding side of things. So it's fair to be like, raising your eyebrows.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel like people who have, like your Patreon was based on you being quite transparent. And saying, right, and a lot of, I'd like to think a lot of our success for Shut Up and Sit Down is us trying to be kind of showing people, right, this is exactly what you're going to get. You know who we are already. You know what we care about.
We've been doing it for years already.
Here's, like, we're sending out the packages, and we're doing package 2 now, and we showed people everything that was in package number 1. And obviously, you know, everyone tweeted about what packages they got, and you know, hopefully it's all kind of obvious to people what's happening.
I think that's the thing, is having the transparency. And obviously we joke about it in the videos, being like, what do you get? Well, nothing really. You're just helping this to continue.
But it's to the point, and I think
it is. I mean, that's the thing.
That appeals to some people.
I think so.
Honesty, I hope.
I think so. I mean, I really did want to make the point when I was starting off the whole thing I'm doing about the fact that so much of the traditional games media system is inherently a bit dodgy.
And no one talks about it.
No one really. People kind of talk about it, but no one really wants to wade in. And I didn't want to too much, but at the same time, it would have been so easy, and I'm sure there are people doing this, or will be more people doing it, of making the thing of actually funding things off the back of going, those guys are fuckers. Give me money, because everything else is shit. And it's like, you know, it's easy to do that and rile people up. But I think transparency and honesty is, because I think that the truth of the matter is everything's a bit shit. But let's not be like, try and get people angry about that and getting people to spend money in an angry way. It's just
everything's
being like,
a bit shit.
Everything's a bit shit. You know, but I'm going to do this, and it's going to be a bit better. And if you want to get involved with that, then we should do that.
There's a strange thing where you'd think Kickstarter and crowdfunding would lead to an age of like total transparency, where like the people are able to see where the money goes. But if anything, I feel like crowdfunding these days has actually made it more complicated. Like if you wanted to. There are a few Kickstarters which I can't really name now, but where we know that the money isn't all going where people even might think it is.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other ethical thing which people probably don't realise, but it's all complicated, and it's even more sort of misty and confusing, and especially ethically complicated than it was before.
It is, and I mean, actually, one of the things I'm really worried about is that's the ice cream.
Oh my god!
That's the end of the podcast, everyone. Let's finish this up. I'm tempted to actually end it. Just ice cream man, gotta go. Amazing. Sorry, guys. You guys end it. But no, I mean, one of the questions I get quite often, and I'm really worried about, is people going, you're nearing kind of, nearing $3,000 a month on the Patreon. What are you going to like? What are your plans for it's increased content and stuff? And it's like, I don't know, because at the moment, like, I've kind of bitten off too much work than I can chew. And obviously I'm doing the shop sit down stuff that spikes up and obviously I was well transparent with people about this from the start, that at the moment we are in the midst of a cardboard empire and putting together the goodie bags that go out to the donors, and that happens 4 times a year. So 4 times a year for about 2 weeks I'll just be well busy, but then in between it's like I'm already working at max capacity, and I'm looking forward to the Escapist gig ending so I can have more time.
It's important to note that, these people are welcome to support you, but it's not like you ever said there would be a sliding scale.
No, I know. But that's the thing I think it's more to do with the fact that inherently expectations do shift.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting, though, because it's like, as an individual, I feel like there's already people going snarkily looking and going, what's he going to do with that then, eh?
It's kind of weird, though. I mean, if you say you wrote a book and it's like, I need this much money to write a book, and it'll be, about this song, it's a novella or it's a novel or whatever. If you got loads and loads of support for it, you couldn't suddenly say, well, now the book's twice as big.
Unless you're George R.R. Martin.
Well, it's weird.
If you're delivering a thing, you deliver a thing. It's just more people now want the thing, and surely that's okay.
Well, no, that's the thing, is it's almost like the whole process and the way that Kickstarters tend to work is changing the mentality of that. It's stretch goals, it's like...
I think stretch goals can be okay for some people in some situations, but I think they're actually potentially really dangerous.
Well, it was a very important realization for us. I mean, just after we launched the Shut Up and Sit Down funding, we received an amount of money, and I was thinking about it and going, okay, well, that's a bit more than I was expected, so we have to do a bit more work. And then but no, if you do that, the thing that these people are supporting can collapse, because we're all human, we're all creative as well, and creativity is like so precious, and like it can just be ruined if you stop having fun, or you become uninspired, or tired, or stressed. So no, you have to be careful. If you try and do twice the work for twice the money, you'll end up with nothing.
You do, and I've talked about this in the weekly update videos I do. I've actually almost fallen into a trap immediately of feeling like, oh fuck, all this money's coming, I've got to do stuff. And so because of that, I've been like, I've got to do stuff, and I've started all these like weekly series.
It just means that you can stretch it out, make it last longer. And
the problem is, it just means that it's like, I've ended up starting loads of series, weekly stuff. So I've got like a weekly XCOM thing, a weekly Dark Souls thing, a weekly podcast, and then before you know it, it's like, I don't have time to do it like anything else because I've like filled. So I'm kind of like, once those things are over, I'm like very seriously. The problem is, it's not like I feel beholden to fans, but when I have like maybe 2 or 3 people going, "Oh Matt, please do an XCOM playthrough," it's like, yeah, I'd like to do that, and it would be fun for you guys. And I know that a number of people who follow my stuff would like that, but it's so easy just to let, like, if you're not careful, just to let your time just fill up with everything. And when people are like, but I don't know, I can see that it will happen. It will happen. It happens to anything. Like, you know, it'll get to a point where that number will hit a certain amount, and people will go, "How much is he doing for that?" It's not very much, is it? Like, it's like, I can't work any harder than working. But it's like, other than being like, maybe I could start cloning myself or hiring someone else, but that's difficult as well.
Yeah. You need to set up a whole new Patreon.
Not a lot of people know this, but Paul is my clone. And,
that's true.
and work.
It's resemblance.
This is like the end of the... I have to bleep it out twice now. I was going to bleep that out. But it's a film you might have seen. You probably even with the bleep, you'll be able to work out what the film is if you've seen it. Anyway, let's wrap it up. And that's been Daft Souls episode 7. If you have enjoyed it...
Wait, I want to know if I'm going to be in your XCOM squad.
All right, I'll put you in.
You're in my XCOM squad.
Oh, this is like
you've got
Valentine's
3
Day.
aliens. You've got 3 aliens with 1 grenade.
All right,
What happened to me? You're
You're not in it yet. No. I've tried to wait until I've got like the right flags.
I've actually just hired a bunch of new recruits this morning. I recorded an episode before.
Both you and Quinn's are heavy weapons people, which makes sense. But this was just how it turned out. That was just the roles you were given.
Yeah,
and not dead yet.
Excellent. That's good news. Well, I'll add you all and let you know how I get on. But
I'm sorry, I should let you wrap up.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. I could talk about XCOM forever.
No, we should wrap up. I need to pee.
Daft Souls again, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Matt Lee is joined by pretty much all of Shut Up and Sit Down, which is an amazing board game site you should read anyway.
It's true.
Or watch. It's got videos. Technology. Yeah. Joined by Quinton Smith.
Bye, everybody.
Paul Dean.
Bye, everyone.
And Brendan Cowell.
Bye-bye.
Bye.